Last Wednesday morning. Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Joining us this morning, City Manager for the City of Hickory, Mr. Mick and Andrea Surratt, Assistant City Manager. There is a briefing that they're taking out to the citizens. It's a PowerPoint, and we wanted to bring them into the studio this morning to find out a little bit more about this and also to find out about what's going on right now in the City of Hickory. We've got the budget from last night. We've got a proposed bond referendum. We're talking about inspiring spaces, and there's a lot of things that are going on right now. And to be well-informed citizens, and for me to be a little bit more well-informed, I wanted to find out about this briefing and about what's happening in the City of Hickory. Good morning, Mr. Berry.
Great. Good morning. Great to be on your show, Hal.
Mr. Surratt, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Hal. Good morning.
First of all, tell me about the briefing. Let's kind of start with that, because in front of me here I've got a printout of a PowerPoint. We're not going to do a PowerPoint on the radio. Would have been kind of fun to see if we could do that. But it's being delivered or being presented to different groups
Yeah, we've probably done about 30 or upwards of 30. I mean, every civic club, every
Rotary, Kiwanis, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heck, we'll come to your house. You know, you want to get a couple neighbors together that are interested. We'll come and tell you what's going on.
And it starts off with the why, I think, of inspiring spaces, a bond referendum, all these things that we're talking about. Kind of, is that where it starts with the, why are we doing this?
Right. Why we are doing it is because of our population situation in terms of the loss of young people and also the job losses. 25% of our employment has gone somewhere else over the last 12 years, and so we have a trend that needs to change.
Is it 25%?
Yeah, over 45,000 jobs in the Hickory MSA we have lost. I mean, everybody kind of knows that intuitively, but when you show them the chart and you see how we compare to the other areas in the state of North Carolina, and we're at the worst, it's disconcerting. And then, like Andrea said, that kind of plays over into, well, what's happened to our population? So we're in a situation of having lost jobs. We all recognize that, but we're also losing 25% of our young adults, 20 to 40-year-olds. Okay. And those are two very detrimental trends to a region.
How did the city or the city employees, how did your office start to come up with these ideas and these solutions? What was it? Was there a moment, or was there? Did you look at this, or these have been presented to you? How did this come about? How did this whole thing start that says, wow, we've got a problem and we need to address it?
Well, I think it really started about 2 years ago. You have a budget crisis, not a crisis, but a crunch.
Right.
You're cutting expenditures, and we all started discussing as staff and with City Council of, okay, we've got to come up with a plan that changes these trends.
Gotcha. So we're talking about tax revenue. We're talking about supporting the city. Mm-hmm. We're talking about money there, economic development, and having people here. Because if you've got jobs going away and you have less jobs, you got less tax revenue. If you have more people moving away and you're talking about a different community, you've got less tax revenue there. So the aspect that you came at it from was the business of the city of Hickory.
Yeah, the business of the city of Hickory, which is indicative of the overall prosperity of your community.
Right. Okay.
I mean, if tax revenues are going down, that means people are suffering. That means there is not economic activity going on. I mean, those two are directly connected.
Gotcha. I was just kind of trying to see the genesis of where all the rest of this comes from.
I think also City Council wanted to look at other communities, because often when you're in a bind, you go, well, how did so-and-so get out of their situation?
Right.
So we looked at Chattanooga, Asheville, Greenville, South Carolina, Roanoke, Burlington, Rock Hill, and all of those cities had an economic decline that they brought themselves back out from. And how did they do it? Well, they made investments in their community.
Okay, very good. So that's where we go to kind of the next step, why we're doing it, and that is for, and I like the word prosperity, for the prosperity of the city. All the other things included, the tax rate, the people, but for prosperity as well. So you got the why you're doing it. Tell me about some of the things now, because I don't understand totally. Inspiring spaces. Do we go there next? Is that where the next part of it?
Yeah, it's really good to talk about the process through Inspiring Spaces and through Innovate Catawba, which we were partners with.
Catawba,
yeah,
okay.
That was more of a chamber initiative, and we were partners in that. in Inspiring Spaces itself, we had over 500 city residents involved in that process. So you're talking about a relatively long process, a couple of years, hundreds of people involved, hundreds of great ideas, that ultimately City Council appointed a committee of 15 individuals and said, hey, take all this feedback, take all these great ideas, and get it down to a workable, manageable plan.
I remember that. People were, Mandy Pitts came on the air and said, you're having these meetings. What do you want to see for the city of Hickory? What are your ideas?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha. So that it kind of came from the citizens. All right.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And a great committee.
Excellent committee. In fact, they're all business leaders in their own right, and they looked at it from a business perspective. How would you improve Hickory?
Right.
By making smart investments. And so a lot of the projects you'll see transform areas of Hickory that have declined. And there are public rights-of-way, there are streets, maybe there are parks, and so we're making investments through this plan.
So we have a problem in the city of Hickory. We're losing jobs, we're losing young folks. The city says, what do we need to do about it? And they go to the citizenry. The citizenry says, this is what we'd like to see. A committee is appointed to manage these ideas and help bring them to possible fruition through the city, and so we're working with Innovate Catawba and also Innovate Hickory, I believe, and we came up with Inspiring Spaces as part of it.
Yeah, it all fits together.
Okay,
you know, I mean, all of those plans dovetail together, and we need to sign you up, Hal. You just gave a brilliant summary in 15 seconds of what we've been doing for the last 2 years. That's it.
So let's talk about what's coming up next.
Yeah.
So we've got the why.
Yep.
This is the way that it's been addressed.
Yep.
And then so we've got part of it is Inspiring Spaces.
Yeah, we basically have got four projects that have been recommended by the committee.
Okay.
And let's talk about each one of those. So the first one has to do.
Forgive me for interrupting, but you've got four now. There wasn't four originally. No. You had dozens that got cooked down and condensed down through the committee. Through, if I'm not mistaken, a consulting firm took a look at it as well. Is that correct?
Yep.
Correct.
And you came up with the best ideas and best practices that you thought would work.
Right. But there are four, I would call them complex projects that might have 5 or 10 recommendations that came from Inspiring Spaces that were then blended together.
So, we'll talk about those when we come back, if it's okay, because they are rather complex, and we'll get into those. So much more to talk about with the Assistant City Manager. Andrea Surratt joins us this morning, as well as City Manager Mick Berry. More First Talk after the break. You're listening to First Talk with Hal Row, broadcast live Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. on 1290 WHKYAM, talk radio for the Greater Hickory Metro, and also streaming live at WHKY.com. Presently enjoying was digitally captured this past Wednesday morning. Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. So much happening right now in and around the city of Hickory. Exciting time. And City Manager Mick Berry, Assistant City Manager Andrea Surratt have had a community, is it called community briefing? Help me, community briefing?
Citizens briefing.
Citizens briefing. That kind of helps people understand this and explains this. And as they were both saying during the break, this is a wonderful opportunity for people to find out. People ask questions. And what you want with this is for people to get their head around this, to understand this, so that they are informed in case they do have questions. And this should be, now, I don't want to take words out of your mouth, but this is what you were telling. This should be a discussion. This should be people becoming involved and having good questions and wanting to find out what's going on. And that's why y'all are taking the time to do this with us, with the community, with the different nonprofit, with the different community civic organizations, so that everybody can be informed, can ask questions, and can understand where this came from, where it's going, and the connections to economic development. So let's go ahead with Ms. Surratt. We have four separate parts of Inspiring Spaces. As you said, well, maybe somewhat a little bit complicated, but let's try to boil them down best we can and let people know about these four projects that will be initiated first as we move along with Inspiring Spaces.
Sure, Hal. So the first project is a riverwalk concept that would happen along the riverfront, the lakefront, connecting Geithner Park to the baseball stadium.
Can I look at this? This is this right here?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And so
This map kind of helps.
Okay.
So one might not think about a natural walking connection between those two destinations. You would not, but it actually could exist along the riverfront. And so we had a businessman in Hickory, Robert Lackey, and his family approached the city a couple of years ago.
No, wait a second. You need to really tell the story.
Okay.
This is really a cool story. Hal, it's worth it.
Right. So Mrs. Deidre Lackey, as you know, she, passed away 2.5 years ago, and she was just a beautiful woman. I didn't know her, but Mr. Lackey had done this really beautiful job of putting an obituary in the paper, and I had seen it and been very impressed and just moved by it. So with that, then I get a phone call several months later from Mr. Lackey, who said he really wanted to create a mausoleum space at the Oakwood Cemetery. And I talked with him further about that, and while we had some space at Oakwood, it wasn't adequate, and I asked him, would he consider being a part of maybe a bigger project where he could honor Miss Lackey. And so I said, we have an Inspiring Spaces program going. There might be opportunities to construct some sort of monument or building or fountain memorial for her. And so it culminated in his design concepts that he's developed right now through an architect for a new special event space at Geithner Park. So you might be familiar with the Bud Geithner building at Geithner Park, Rotary Geithner Park, and that building is seeing its useful life and maybe needs to be upfitted with a new building. So the Lackey family is going to donate between $3 and $5 million toward the construction of two buildings: the Lake House concept, which is the special event space where you can have weddings, receptions, and it opens out onto the lake.
Wow!
And then also a conservatory. So when in my conversations with him, he had asked me had I seen the Biltmore Garden Conservatory, and that was his vision for something smaller but as substantial as that for her. And so there's a conservatory building plan for that park as well, and
which will be flora fauna, which will
be indoor outdoor very formal garden space.
Very nice.
Yes.
So that's part of
right. So that's the private donation, and then there's our public investment in the baseball stadium.
Okay.
When the Hickory baseball did over $1 million, and we did over $1 million as well, and we the city, and so there now is a fabulous new renovated baseball stadium.
Yes.
The connection is property that the city owns along the lakefront that carries you all the way to the bridge, Highway 321 bridge.
Right.
The bridge is intended and expected to be reconstructed by starting in 2017, completed in 2022.
Who knew that? Who knew that? No, no one knows that.
No one knows. We need to come back and talk about that as well.
We know that citizens, we know that the bridges are being done in North Carolina.
Right.
We know that they need to be redesigned, and we know that that's been happening. But I don't think the citizenry knows that that's going to be, because you say, okay, there's a bridge.
Right.
Now you know that there's a bridge that's going to be redesigned, so maybe we incorporate this bridge design into this. Okay.
Yep. So
there you go.
So our river walk would go under the new bridge, and then continue on along the property west of the bridge all the way to the baseball stadium, which is undeveloped property in private hands right now, but it has a great potential to be the next Catawba Valley Boulevard. And what I mean by that is our next major retail hub for retail that's really considered to be lifestyle center retail.
If people were able, and I would encourage anyone who's listening this morning who has not seen this, a PowerPoint, to get some folks together. And I know you said it kind of jokingly, but I think if you have a neighborhood association, maybe a place of worship, wherever, and people are interested by this, there are going to be a couple public meetings that Dana just told us about, I believe, coming up. I want to help me with the dates. The 9th.
My calendar out.
I believe. But anyway, see these, because now that I look at the new waterfront development, it makes sense.
Right.
But I can see where, okay, this makes sense here, and it comes around the bridge. See, that was a question that I had. What are you going to do? You build a crosswalk over? What do you do?
Right.
And then you come around, and this is a great look for the development.
It is, because it gives us a facelift in that part of town. It puts, if you're coming across the bridge from Caldwell County into Hickory, what you would then see is a major retail attraction, destination with the baseball stadium. So you can go and do multiple things with your evening. You can shop, you could dine, you could go to a game, you could walk along the river walk, and you can connect. People like to connect two major destinations or multiple destinations, and so this gives them an opportunity to walk all the way back to Geithner Park and back and forth. And
better yet, why not just get a condo along the walk?
Or buy your condo there.
Buy your condo there.
Exactly.
Your family, the kids can get out and play. They can have a good time. You can walk over, have dinner, do the ball game, walk back on that. See, okay, now, gotcha.
Right. So the city would not build that. The developer, and we don't have one yet, but the concept could be pitched to a developer who would then see the...
So Andrea's got a great vision for those types of things and can see the layout. I tend to be, okay, let's talk about the business case.
Sure.
So when we talk about it being the next Catawba Valley Boulevard, like she's saying, we got to be clear with people, we don't see big box retail development being out in that space. Like she's saying, it's the next phase of retail, which is this mixed use, smaller shops, entertainment, residential, maybe on top of the shops, etc.
An outdoor shop, an ice cream parlor, a restaurant, a pub, these type of things, a bicycle shop.
Right.
So those type of things.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And using Catawba Valley Boulevard as an example, let's talk about return on investment. So if the bonds are passed, taxpayer dollars are spent out there, it will be building the Riverwalk. It will be some utilities on the baseball stadium side. So you kind of think about the Bud Geithner side of the Riverwalk being the more passive piece of it, but then as you cross under the bridge, it becomes more of the retail piece, more of the commercial side. In Catawba Valley Boulevard, you remember this, Hal, when it was first proposed, I remember thinking, that's out in the middle of nowhere. Because in my mind, there was nothing beyond the mall. The mall was kind of it for the city. And yet the city spent $3 million, partnered with DOT. Now there is $55 million of commercial development, paying $275,000 in property tax every year and generating over $1 million in sales tax every year. What a great return on that taxpayer investment right there. We think the same type of opportunity can take place out here at the baseball stadium off the Riverwalk.
We'll first talk after this commercial break. You're listening to First Talk with... Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. I'm starting to understand more now about Inspiring Spaces. Maybe if I had taken the time, like I should have as a good citizen, to go to some of these meetings to find out about the projects, I know a little bit more. But this is great information that I am learning more now, and I'm finding out more about the project, what's going to be taken a look at with the proposed bond referendum. So let's continue on. It was great that you came in at the end there, because I was getting real excited about the way that it looks and the feel and that aspect of it, but there's definitely a revenue part of this. And you said, hey, wait a minute, we've got an investment that we made with the city that we're seeing a return on investment. We'll see it here. That's the proposal, is we're going to see a return. We've got three other pieces of this I'd like to go ahead and kind of cover. And I'm sorry I've been holding you all up, because I'm jumping in there with all kinds of questions. But let's go over the other three pieces, and I'll try to let you talk about it.
You're fine, Hal, and I'll try to buzz through them, and then you can react and we can discuss. So then you switch gears from the Riverwalk and what we can do at the lake and the river to our central business district. All of us have seen the mills that have redeveloped, right? And Transportation Insight being the last one that really, to me, proves the business case. That is, the city makes investments, and they're similar investments to what we do at the Riverwalk, and we're actually calling it a city walk. If we connect Lenore Rhine through the Mill District, down Main Avenue, down the rail, into more of the commercial area with Union Square, and ultimately all the way out to the Piedmont Wagon Building, which has been bought by Cornerstone United, is being redeveloped as a corporate headquarters. We really feel like we can keep this job play for headquarters, service jobs, professional jobs in our central business district. We can really keep that going, because 20 to 30-year-olds, they want to work in an environment where they can ride to work. They want to be able to, walk somewhere at lunch and get something to eat, get their hair done, whatever. People like Paul Thompson, the founder and chairman of Transportation Insight, a great local company who has bought the Lyerly Mill and is redeveloping it to be his corporate headquarters and campus. He gets that. That's why he wants to be in the Central Business District. We think that's kind of project number 2, is what we're calling a city walk, to put the connectivity together there and to continue to grow those headquarter jobs in the Central Business District. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is really looking at all of the major transportation corridors all throughout the city and the gateways. So I'm talking about Springs Road, I'm talking about Lenoir-Rhyne Boulevard, Highway 70, the interchanges at 321 and I-40 into the city. It hurts me to say this, Hal, but our street system is no longer competitive. Yep, you can drive on it, you can get there. We've talked about paving in the budget. But when you go to other communities, their major transportation corridors are at a whole nother level, a higher level. So let me explain what I mean by that. They're more pedestrian friendly, they're more bike friendly, they're more aesthetically appealing, they're prettier. And just to put it in exactly what it is, we're trying to sell this community. We want to be a place that people come with their businesses, that they come and want to live. And our streetways are, in a lot of ways, they're the curb appeal. What do you think when you're first driving into a community? Does it look like a tired old mill town, or does it look like a place that's got a lot of vibrant economic activity? Quick example, and then we'll move to the next one. Mike Johnson and others on Highway 70, Nissan spent millions of dollars to rebuild and do their dealerships. When you drive Highway 70, it looks horrible. I mean, the medians are tore up. They don't even half exist. The public investment in that case needs to follow and promote the private investment. In other areas, we think as we make that public investment in improving the transportation corridors, the public or the private investment and the jobs will follow.
Very good.
All right, so the last one is going to be the one that is going to surprise you because you have not yet heard about it. And the reason is because this really didn't come out of the committee's work. It was really staff, Scott Millar at the EDC, and myself working to put together contracts to tie up property to create a new business park.
Okay.
The first major business park the city of Hickory will have had in probably 15 years or more. So we're talking about the property that sits between Robinwood Road and Startown Road. So think about south of CVCC.
Okay.
About 179 acres right now is under option, and we feel like we'll be able to add about another 100 acres to that. And we are talking about a Class A manufacturing business park being built there.
Manufacturing business park. Okay.
Yep.
So those are the major areas that if the bond proposal does come through, this is where the funding will come through on the city side.
Yep, those are the 4 projects.
I want to go back.
Okay.
Now that we've kind of heard about them, City Walk, the City Walk, the connectivity there. Give me an idea of what that's going to look like, and maybe that's you, Ms. Surratt. I don't know what that's going to look like, and the areas that will be connected by this. Is it a sidewalk? Is it paved for biking? What is the City Walk? Is it more of a concept that things are already there, and we promote what's already there? We fix up. Help me with City Walk.
It's going to be a combination. I mean, the majority of it will be a dedicated path, okay, that people can get on and not have any concern about traffic. You can stroll your baby, you can jog, you can walk.
Got it.
But there will be components of it that will jump onto sidewalks, so we'll use some of the existing infrastructure that's in place, probably widen it, probably do some more screening so you got a little more buffer from the roadways. But ultimately, it is a pedestrian walk, a city walk, that will let you, without concern about traffic, basically go from Lenoir-Rhyne into the downtown area, and ultimately, all the way out to the old Piedmont Wagon Building. Thank you.
Okay.
And really through the whole central business district of the city.
So that's considered the central business district, and that's where we're going to do the city walk to make sure that we have the connectivity there. As far as pedestrian traffic, you said strollers, walking, jogging, bicycles. Make sure that that's all there and that's all supported.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Did I see signage? Did I just see the first My Inspiring Spaces sign yesterday on 127 as I was passing.
You did.
It was the new one, brand new one.
It's a sign. Just
here's another Inspiring Spaces.
Another inspiring space. The mayor wants the community to start seeing where those dollars are going in terms of just vacant building grants or just donations from private individuals, like the Lackey Project. And so you'll see a few signs going up on projects that we feel like speak to the Inspiring Spaces program and this bond referendum, all the projects related to it.
Now let's talk a little bit about the streets and the way that the look, the curb appeal, and what's that part of it called?
We're calling it the major commercial corridors.
Major commercial corridors.
Yep.
Okay, so this is the area where you want Highway 70 maybe to look better.
Yep.
Basically just the streets. Now help me with this. I know that some of the streets in the city of Hickory are Hickory maintained, and we pay for them. There are other ones that are State Department of Transportation that we have no control over. Which ones can we? And you're giving me the thumbs up, like okay.
You are spot on. That's a great question. These are all DOT roadways, but here's how this works. Lenoir-Rhine Boulevard, when it was rebuilt from Tate into the college, right, into the university.
Which looks great.
It looks great because DOT will only build a strip of asphalt, and that's it.
Okay.
If you're going to do anything more than that, the city has to step up, and city council
curbs, the medians, the painting, all that?
Yeah, all of that. The city stepped up and said, look, we've got to have a higher quality street there. So you kind of can see in that little segment what I'm talking about.
Right.
You're talking about sidewalk, curb and gutter, lighting,
the lighting, the lighting is very cool.
All of those things that enhance that street. And the city spent less than $200,000. Over $18 million has already been invested by the Holler project, by Johnny Moretz and his project, and that's going to continue to grow. So again, you kind of get that return on investment on that business guy that keeps looking for, you make an investment, how does it pay off? That's a perfect example of what we're talking about doing in all of the major thoroughfares around the city.
I just kind of, and help me with this, I don't know, I may have just answered my own question that I was going to come up with. I don't know. But I'm thinking, okay, you can do so much in an area. You can state can put down the strip of pavement. You can do the lighting. You can do the curb and gutter. You can make it look great. But someone's going to need to fill in that sinkhole. Someone's going to need to take that old property, that old building that's sitting there that doesn't look so good, that is between a really nice new building and another nice new building. And then there's this building that just doesn't look so good. But is this the answer? That when you have improved property values, when you have someone that says, hey, wow, this dealership looks great, and this new restaurant over here looks great, I want to buy the land the sinkhole was on.
That's right.
And improve
That's exactly what happens.
and so the property value goes up.
That's exactly.
And the phones light up as I say sinkhole. This is the phone. I didn't want to use that word, but that's part of what we're talking about. Is when we're talking about these areas and commercial folks are coming in. This is where you see the jobs. This is where you see the revenue, and this is where you see the improvements come along after the city and the state come together and start putting forth some effort.
Well, you've seen that, yes, you've seen that happen specifically at LR Boulevard, the section that's been renovated.
Right.
So the folks at Holler Mill and Moretz Mill will say to you that because of the investment that the city and DOT made in that roadway, it helped bring to light some great buildings that had been derelict, and so they could, and it stabilized the neighborhood. When you make that public investment, it sends a signal that this area has stability. It's not left over. It's not abandoned. It's not moving backward. It's moving in the right direction.
Someone may ask, how does this benefit me? I was living in Alabama when they had the Mercedes plant come in. An old barber who I was in his barber shop said, well, I'll tell you what, when those folks come into town, they're going to have to get their haircut somewhere. We need to remember that part of it, that when folks come into town with a brewery, when we have people who are going to work at a restaurant, when we have people who are going to work at a retail location, that doesn't just add to the tax base that Mr. Berry's been talking about in that business aspect of it. It helps other businesses thrive. The dry cleaners, the people who are selling the cars, these aspects as well.
Exactly.
More First Talk after the break.
Great.
You're listening to First Talk with Hal Row, broadcast live Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. until 9 a.m. on 1290 WHKYAM, talk radio for the Greater Hickory Metro, and also streaming live at WHKY.com. The program you're Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on 1290 WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. Our guests this morning, City Manager Mick Berry, Assistant City Manager Andrea Surratt. We're talking about a proposed bond referendum. We're talking, first of all, we talked about the why we needed it, how it can pay back to the community if these projects are approved. We've talked about the aspect for the citizens that looks nice and feels good. We've talked about the investment opportunities and the return on investment for the city. Covered that a little bit of that this morning. And I was just telling them during the break, well, wow, you all are just great salespeople. If this city stuff doesn't work out, you got a great opportunity in sales because you've established a relationship. You've made me feel good about it. Here I'm smiling and I'm like, oh, this is great. Now I got to find out what it's going to cost me. But that's okay because, now it seems to make, honestly, a little bit more sense. I do want to remind people, we'll tell you in just a minute, the next meeting's coming up, that you can find out more at some community meetings that will be available. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Mr.
tomorrow at Patrick Beaver Library at 5:30, I will be there doing this exact same presentation and having discussion and taking questions. Tuesday the 10th at City Hall at 5:30. I think Andrea's got that one, or maybe I've got that one. But anyway, those are the two meetings. So tomorrow at 5:30, Patrick Beaver. Tuesday at 5:30 at City Hall.
And if you have questions, if you don't feel good about this, if there's things that you don't understand or that you disagree with, this is the opportunity that you'll have to get answers to the questions or to express this and to say, I don't know that this is the right project or this is the right time. We've already had the discussions, but if you want your voice to be heard, you can certainly get the information first. And then once you get the information, then you can take it to your city council member. If you are a detractor and say, I don't like this or this is not what I feel is good, make sure that you make your elected officials know your feelings on this. But first, before you do that, get the information. Get the information at one of these meetings or schedule a meeting so that you can find out what it looks like. I didn't know about the 321 bridge. I didn't know what was always going on with Inspiring Spaces. Did not know what was going on with the business park. Now, who's going to tell me what's it going to cost me? Because that's the question, right?
Yeah, I won't make Andrea do that. I'm more the budget and finance guy. I'll do that.
All right.
Okay.
What's it going to cost me?
Yeah, so what's it going to cost you? So let's assume that City Council decides they want to go forward with a $40 million bond referendum.
So this is $40 million price tag on what we've talked about.
That's right, on those four projects.
And before we continue on, is that enough? Is that going to be enough to cover it? You're not going to be running tight on this? Will $40 million do it?
$40 million will go a long way.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, it sure will. So the bonds get passed, okay? And first, just got to give a quick Civics 101 in North Carolina.
Help me with that.
Yeah, City Council can only do what the state of North Carolina lets them do. So, people have come to me with, well, why don't you pay for it with this revenue or that revenue? City Council really only has control over property tax.
Right.
Okay? So we're talking about property tax paying back the bonds.
Any type of sales tax has to be approved by the state legislature that goes there. And even this, a bond referendum, does have to be approved by a certain governmental agency that allows issuance of bonds to make sure that that we're set and ready to be able to do this.
That's exactly right, Hal. Great, thanks. Okay, so it's a $40 million bond referendum. In November, let's assume that it passes.
Okay. There's no special election. It goes on to the general election?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. It goes on the general election.
I keep interrupting.
No, you're fine. The average home in Hickory is valued at $150,000.
Okay.
Okay. So what does that mean to the average homeowner? It means $10 a month.
Okay.
Okay, that's how much your property tax bill would go up for you to pay your share of the $40 million in bonds. But that doesn't happen on day one. Because think about it, $40 million, we couldn't build all those projects right after the bond referendum. So what would happen is the city would borrow, let's say, $10 million in the first year.
Okay.
So that's all we have to pay back for the first 2 or 3 years. So your property tax only goes up $2.50 a month.
Okay.
3 or 4 years later, as those projects are coming online, those things are built, we issue another $10 million. It goes up another $2.50 a month.
All this can be done with one bond referendum?
Yeah.
You don't have to do a referendum every time.
No, that's right. Good point. The $40 million authorizes the city to borrow up to $40 million. The referendum
over that period of time.
Over a 7-year period of time.
Over a 7-year period of time. What do you say to the people who say you're building debt for my grandchildren? I don't want my grandchildren to pay this. How soon do we get it paid off?
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, and what I would say to you is you're building a community for your grandchildren.
Okay.
You know, it's just like building a home. I don't know anybody who can go out and pay cash and build a home.
Right.
You borrow, you build a home, you know you're making an investment, it appreciates from year to year, you have something for your family, you have something to hand down to the next generation. Same concept here.
This is all property taxes. Does this include property for business owners?
Yes.
And what's the cost for business owners? Is it the same proportionally?
Yes, exactly the same. Thanks, Hal. Yep, they'll pay exactly their fair share of that as well. You just put more zeros behind it to get the value of their property, and they're paying the exact same rate.
How do you get the amount from the $150,000? Break it down for me just a little bit. We've only got just a couple of minutes left, but if you can help me, I'm a homeowner.
Sure.
This all sounds good to me.
Okay.
I want to see the city of Hickory improved. I want to see I'd love the idea of the Riverwalk. I'd like to be able to take my family there. I'd love to be able to do that. I want the business park for manufacturing. I think that'll be great so that my husband, my wife may have a better opportunity of getting a job. I want to have the connectivity to bring the young folks in for the center city aspect. Tell me, how do you break it down? How am I going to pay for it?
Well,
help me with the bond issue. The city issues, help me with this real quick. 6201.
Okay.
Very briefly.
Okay. How do you help with it? If you're sold, you call Steve Mole.
Okay. Well, now tell me about how the bond works.
Okay.
Okay. Tell me how the bond issuance works and how I invest as a city. We buy bonds. We pay them back. What's the deal there? Help me with that.
Yeah. I mean, you certainly as an investor could buy those bonds and get paid back by the city with interest.
No, just as an average citizen. Tell me about my tax bill.
Your tax bill. Yeah. It's back to that $2.50 a month.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm sorry.
There you go. I'm not asking it clearly, but how do we get that $2.50 a month? Is that an actual tax increase?
It is.
That we're going to have on my property tax. Yep. I'm going to see.
So,
and when I see that increase and the city gets that tax money, what do they don't spend it out of that. They're doing a bond issuance, right?
Right. They're actually paying back the bonds, right? They borrowed the money, they're doing the construction, building the projects, and then paying back the bonds.
So our increase in taxes is paying back basically a loan, but in this case a bond that we're buying that we're getting with a certain interest rate, and we're paying that interest rate back to invest in these projects.
That's exactly right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was
good summary, Hal.
Clear on that.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it's wrapped up. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Oh, our pleasure.
And we want people to know that we got two more. Andrea Surratt, Assistant City Manager. Thank you.
Thank you,
for joining us. It's good to see you. Mick
Yes.
Berry, good to see you. We're going to go ahead and close the way we normally do it with our national anthem.